Hello and welcome back to the New Earth Business Podcast. I am here with a new guest, a new connection for me. His name is Dickon. He is the founder of Bliss, an alcohol-free spirit brand. Whether it's uplifting, relaxing, or arousing, each spirit is expertly crafted with botanicals, vitamins, adapted, I never can say that word properly, adaptogens and nootropics.
Second time the chance.
Yeah. I have been gifted one of your amazing, I'm calling them plant spirit elixirs. That's what feels good for me for New Year. And it's come at the perfect time because I'm doing dry January and I needed that something else on my weekends that was going to give me the thing, the energy, the relaxation that I got from my Saturday night glass of wine. And I can already tell you it is not only replacing that, but it is overtaking that. So with it being January right now, I'm so excited to introduce you to New Earth Business Podcast and all of our listeners. Hear about how it started, how everything came to be, and a deepening on your story. So I'm going to go straight in with my first question, which is, and I've got this question from reading your website, your about page. You talk about this Icarus moment. Now, I'd love it if you could explain that in depth a little bit to our listeners.
Wow, well, straight in with the short and simple question there, Emma. Well, it's good to meet you, and thanks for this chance to explain about the Spirit of Bliss and a little bit about my journey to this point in my career as a burgeoning entrepreneur. Well, I guess everything that we do and we go in with passion has to have a pretty strong intention and desire and motivation behind it, really. And this was not a new experience in terms of wanting to replace alcohol, in terms of wanting to replace drugs, in terms of wanting to bring forth something from the new earth into this experience. And obviously it ties back to old lifetimes or old wisdom, knowledge that has been lost to humanity largely, i.e. that of herbalism and how to work with the body and how to induce elevated states that are not about inebriation, and that are expanded states of awareness as well. So this particular reason, I'd given up alcohol maybe a good sort of 10 years prior. But as it tends to be, one crutch kind of gets substituted for another, and I had gone into adventure sports, adrenaline sports, and they became my crutch. They became my way of dealing with my own neurochemical imbalance, and that became very clear as I sat and sort of did a bit of a life review, which was forced upon me. I had no intention to be doing a life review. This was in 2019, so about a year before everyone else went into lockdown. I found myself in lockdown with a lot of time for self-reflection, and that was due to having gone out paragliding, having ignored my own intuition, having decided that I was going to use my will to override the signs and the dreams that I'd had about this event that occurred. So I went out paragliding, didn't pay attention to my own intuition on the day as well, and then wound up falling, I don't know, 10, 15 meters, it's hard to say, after experiencing a collapse in the parachute. And spiraled in and slammed into the ground at one of my local flying sites, and yeah, had quite a few broken bones to show for my misadventure and a broken back, and therefore was both bedridden for a couple of weeks, but also I was deprived of my crutch. I couldn't go paragliding. I couldn't go out cycling. I couldn't go out hiking in the hills. All of the ways that I used to bring in endorphins, bring in adrenaline, bring in just the joys of nature were completely taken away. And so I threw all of my avoidance strategies, but all of my creative energy, of which I've got a lot, and a lot of physical energy, into creating a plant spirit for myself to be able to feel happy. That was where that Icarus moment came in. It wasn't the starting point of my journey in learning about the realm of alcohol-free spirits and the world of herbalism. I'd already had some quite clear ideas and inspiration come through for doing that. But I don't think without that really strong motivation that I would have chosen to undertake quite such a long and crazy journey, because to create something and bottle it and bring it to market, that's a whole nother realm of commitment and like energy that's required to make that happen. And so yeah, it required all of my focus to go into it to get it to this point, for sure. So yeah, no paragliding for me, but instead enjoying getting back more into the festival scene, prioritizing that sort of social aspect of the interaction that comes from serving drinks, and yeah, it's a different version of enjoyment and excitement. So,
Wow. I feel like I've been on an emotional journey listening to that, like feeling really in it when you're talking about that. Your parachute collapsing and the spiraling moment and everything, like life completely changing forever. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this in their own way, and it's amazing how you've created something so important, so powerful from what essentially is something really hard that's had to happen to you. I really, really relate to you and your story, and that was one of the reasons why I got in touch, because I'll just share a little bit about my Icarus moment. I've had a few, but one of the big ones for me, similar to yours, I was out in New Zealand in a place called Wanaka, and I was doing freestyle skiing. And I was getting quite good, and I was starting to do competitions, and I was hitting rails and kickers, and I was spinning higher and bigger.
Wow.
The day that I was tired, hungover, trying to impress a group of boys that were all sponsored, who were all doing 360s on this 30-foot quarter pipe, I was like, do you know what? I can do this. I can do this. And the snow cannons were on this quarter pipe. It was the end of the day. I was tired. I was weak. But so the intuition, similar to you, Dickon, was like, no, don't do this. But there was that, what it came down to me, for me, it was acceptance. I needed to be accepted by this pack of people that I was in, that were all much better at me than I was at the time, and they were all sponsored and I wasn't sponsored yet. So I went hurtling down, I hit this quarter pipe, came up about 10 feet in the air, realized I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, like, the mechanics of how to spin my body and land with my skis facing downwards. So I landed on the coping on the top. I broke my coccyx. I slid down in side splits and dislocated my hip. My life has never been the same ever again. And it's pretty much led me to this point. It was my first course correction. I came away from alcohol a bit. I came away from drugs a bit more. And yeah, I mean, I could go on forever, and this podcast it's not about my story, but I just wanted to share that, because I know that I know. I know where that feeling takes you, and it takes you to such a deep and a dark place, and to claw back out of it, like everything that you do, that you said, it gives you that juice, that gives you that energy, that gives you that adrenaline, it disappears, poof. And so to build this brand that you've built is incredible, and it's going to help so many people. So well done.
Thank you. I very much hope so. I truly do.
Yeah. So just a little bit more on the addiction side of things. I'm really interested to know how addiction has played a part in the weaving of your business.
Because I've also had my own journeys with alcoholism and drug use, and also self-healing for depression and actually self-healing through cancer. I've had lots of opportunity to learn about what some neurochemical deficiencies there are that lead to that behavior. So I guess I got really serious about nutrition when I chose to give up alcohol, and also when I started writing about healing depression. And for me, alcoholism and depression were very interlinked. It's like there's a list of things I know I can do in this life, and I know I can't, because they will just bring me too far down, and then it becomes a negative spiral. And alcohol is one of those things for me. Or at least it was. I think I've balanced my system to a large degree, so I can get away with a couple of glasses of red wine now and still feel good the next day or the day after that. But actually, it's taken a good many years to sort of restore a systemic imbalance. And they do say, like, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. I don't believe in that anymore, but it does take a long time to rectify and change imbalances, which often are even inherited or you've picked up in early years nurture. Like, that's a long journey. So you're always going to be aware that there's a tendency, shall we say, but it doesn't need to be as strong as it used to be. It's a spectrum of compulsion. Let's put it that way. So how did addiction play its part? It gave me a lot of background knowledge that I could then bring into creating a drink, because reaching for alcohol, there's positive benefits, albeit immediate ones, and albeit ones that come with a price, and you have to pay the interest on that choice, and you pay it back the next day. Well, you get either a substitute chemical, you get a substitute, or you get a hormonal release, but then as your body tries to restore its homeostasis, the pendulum swings the other way, and you feel a lot worse. So, I mean, for instance, the alcohol dopamine relationship isn't really well acknowledged or understood. And there's an irony if you go along to Alcoholics Anonymous. They'll give you tea and biscuits, and it's caffeine and sugar, which provoke some of the same neurochemical release, and you're getting a dopamine hit from that. So switching to coffee and biscuits, you're not changing the chemistry that produces the craving. Where when you start to use adaptogens and other herbs consistently, and it does take time, then you start to raise your sort of set point. I always think about, we've got set points. So for instance, adrenaline sports is very much associated with low dopamine. because we don't have a sense of satisfaction that, like, quote unquote normal people have, right? So we go chasing something that allows us to feel satisfied, and adrenaline kicks out. I mean, it raises your blood sugar again, dopamine reward, and serotonin as well. They're all interrelated, so you can't make a one-to-one correlation with any neurochemical in the body, but dopamine and serotonin are the two sort of primary ones. And also, I think escaping anxiety or responding to anxiety is a large part of that. Certainly the adrenaline sports, because you're kind of stepping into an environment whereby your system makes sense, right? You're already in fight or flight, so then you get into a dangerous situation and at least you're sort of in an appropriate emotional response. Whereas if you're in fight and flight and you're just sitting at a desk, it's like, what are you doing there? You can't do anything. There's no fight or flight behavior that you can then use. But if you're hitting a quarter pipe, you've got to be sharp. You need all of that response to be there and working. So, like, reducing anxiety, as we know, if you kind of look at different ways of treating anxiety with the more spiritual or the more cognitive behavioral therapy ways of doing that, it's all about bringing down anxiety, like, to a large degree. And I've tried lots of different therapies as well. What's been your best? What's been the best? Chocolate and bliss. I'm not averse to substituting a crutch that's really unhealthy for one that's a lot less unhealthy. And so I'm not talking about Cadbury's Dairy Milk, I'm talking about 70% dark chocolate, or I'm talking about a bottle of Bliss where, to be honest, I don't think anything in there is unhealthy. I think everything in there is going to restore a balance. Dark chocolate, the caffeine is probably an issue. So I think Bliss is a healthier version or a healthier option. Yeah. And quite frankly, using microdosing of mushrooms.
Psilocybin.
Both psilocybin and more recently fly agaric as well, nice. Which feels more appropriate for me, much more appropriate for various reasons, but that's perhaps another topic for another day, because I can wax lyrical on that. I can't put that into Bliss because it's just too much threshold of what you would be allowed to do by the law. Everything in Bliss is legal or just on the right side of the Novel Foods Act. So, and what we can do with, and I'll talk about Bliss a little bit more, when you're playing with a lot of different herbs, you're involved in cooking and you're actually creating compounds, and you're creating novel compounds with ingredients that are sort of accepted culinary ingredients, but that's where it becomes an alchemical process. And that's where we can circumvent these insane restrictions on what we are and are not allowed to consume. None of those restrictions pretty much are for our benefit or health, or I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but the art of cooking, the art of decoction, the art of brewing can allow us to still achieve something which really improves our neurochemical balance and brings us back to sort of center and sanity, unlike, say, coffee or caffeine or alcohol.
Yeah, and it's sort of most obvious form, when you get a meal that's been cooked, that's a high vibrational meal, right? That's soul food. When somebody's cared for that food and you taste it and you go, compared to something that's quick, bam, out the oven, on the plate, rush to eat it. You're really or it feels like, as you're sort of downloading spirit codes, as you're creating, as you're alchemizing your drinks. And then what that actually does is creates a very high vibrational elixir tonic that you say is like, can sometimes surpass what's actually going into it in terms of the amazing benefits.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother level of creation, where we do influence matter with our intention and our thought, and that you can kind of now get to a scientific explanation of how that works. Or I worked with water for many years. Another part of my entrepreneurial journey was working with water ionizers, and the intention there to be involved in preventative healthcare, because dehydration is an issue, acidosis is an issue, which is where we're systemically over acidic, and an access to negative ions for improving our health is also an important part of that health picture. So hence I got involved in ionized water. And whilst being on that journey and really diving deep, sorry about the pun, into the subject of water, the aspect of how it retains memory just became really clear. And to make it a bit more of a scientific explanation for those with a slightly skeptical bent, it's very interesting to note that water itself can be understood as a liquid crystal. So unlike, say, silica and silicone, which is the memory retaining medium in a computer, water is also crystalline in its structure, albeit a liquid crystal, but that doesn't prevent it being able to retain information, which is one reason why we are made largely of water. But again, that's a bit of a deeper subject.
I mean, there's so many deep subjects we can unpick, and perhaps that's a conversation for another day. But I am also very intrigued by water, the Dr. Emoto stuff, where you play the rock and roll, like heavy metal music, and the crystals are all sort of disformed, and then you play the classical, and they become beautiful shapes when they're frozen. And that's a really good visual, isn't it, for people that are on that skeptical side of things. So I absolutely love that, and it makes sense that you're somebody coming from that experience to create what you're creating now. I wonder, did you have a moment, like as a child, when you connected with the plant kingdom? Was there anybody in your family? How did this connection come about with plants?
I'd say I only kind of recognized it or gave it credit late in life. Although my happy place as a child was sitting in a tree. It was sitting in a sweet chestnut tree. And now I understand better why that was, because it's a very sweet energy. If you ever get into bark tree essences, which I highly recommend you go and play with those, because there's really precisely aligned experiences that we have, or emotions that we have, will match a frequency of a tree really, really well. For resolution, we can really change the way we feel hugely by just choosing the right essence. And sweet chestnut is one that is really appropriate for me. So I'm not surprised that I found a lot of peace and solace by sitting in that tree. After sort of getting lost in drink and drugs and chasing excitement and girls and all that good stuff, for me, herbalism was something that kind of dull old ladies would get up to, and no interest to me whatsoever, with maybe a cup of chamomile tea when I'd really overdone it and needed something to come back down again. But that was about as far as I kind of took it or saw it. And then I suppose plant medicines, that plant medicine journey, then
Any particular experience?
reawakened. I did spend a few years going quite far into the realms of plant medicine with ayahuasca, also with San Pedro a little bit, but primarily with ayahuasca, which initially felt like they'd kind of reconciled some of my early psychedelic experiences, and I did feel or believe that it was allowing me to kind of really reach down into some deep patterns of trauma and heal them, which may be the case. I don't advise people particularly to go down that route anymore. I think it's a shortcut that doesn't really serve us. There are some drawbacks that come with it. It's a bit of you pay a price, I think, to go into those realms, and we're not equipped to do so. Like we're kind of babes in the wood in the 3-dimensional realm, let alone once we go and leave our bodies behind and go and play in the higher dimensional realms. I think there's a good reason why all of the traditions require a shaman to have a long training and to come from a lineage whereby they're inheriting a lot of training already. But it certainly it does bring about an awakening, an awareness, and a connection. I think there's much more appropriate ways to do it. Like, you don't have to trip on a plant. You can simply sit with the leaf of a plant, and all right, you might not get a really intense visual or a really impressive story to tell your friends, but you will subtly change and retune yourself by it. But it will be very slow and it will be very subtle. And actually that's kind of the nature of change. If you try and do something quickly, then there isn't the time for your body to catch up, you know. So plant medicine certainly had a lot to do with at least seeing plants and herbs as being more exciting than I'd given them credit for.
Yeah, as our teachers.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to say on that topic of plant medicine and the current culture that we live in, being, you know, we order something off Amazon and it arrives the next day. And I think that's kind of how a lot of people are looking to plant medicines now. They do want the quick fix. They do want the automatic response. And there's conversations that I'm getting into now similar to this, where it's like, we can do this, but it's just going to take a bit longer. Like you said, I've got yarrow next to my bed at the moment. I put different herbs next to my bed, and I dream with them, and that's the way that I'm connected in. I had my ayahuasca experience. It, you know, blew my socks off. I learned loads from it. Did 2 nights in the jungle with Abuela Emilia from the Shipibo tribe, so felt really held and safe through that journey. And came out of it with the real, she sort of told me off in a way. She's like, you know, you just need to do you, like, just study yourself. You are it. I had Ram Dass come down on a cloud laughing at me, saying, oh, you've taken so long to get here, but I'm here to tell you that you are it. You are the I on the top of the T, Emma. You are it. And just like, go self-study and check out the mushrooms. So that was like, okay, that was my homework. And then that process led to me doing more self-discovery and more just connecting with plants physically. Like you said, taking a leaf and asking, okay, how is this plant meant to heal me? What can I do for it? And something that I teach now in my workshops is, when we're working with plants, what can we do for them? It's really important to ask, as much as you're asking, how are you going to help me? It's like, but how can I help you? And often I was talking to lots of apple trees as in apple season, and the apple trees were like, just share our medicine, like take the juice and give it to friends. And it's a community plant. It's to bring people together. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do with the spirit of the apple. So yeah, it's just a reminder to everyone that we don't need to go on these massive hallucinogenic journeys, like you said, to connect. It's about opening eyes, ears, feelings, senses, and getting rid of that feeling of feeling silly, that, oh, I'm talking to a plant. It's okay.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for
Perfectly
thousands of
put.
years.
Perfectly put. And yeah, I love that your experience explains so well what I was just trying to say as well.
Yeah, we're a reflection of one another right here. So I would like to know a little bit more now about the alchemy and the creative process. Please, can you give me a visual of your apothecary, of your studio, of like, how do you, do you kind of like listen to music? Do you get into a mood? What's that process look like?
Yeah, I guess everyone's creative process is different. I'd been working, before I started doing the Spirit of Bliss and creating my own elixirs, I'd been working for a year with a couple who we created together a business called Sense of Spirits that already started selling teas and creating a range of elixirs, spirits they called chakra shots. And I came in to help them take that into a commercial realm. And so my brief was in sales and marketing, but the first thing we needed to do was to figure out how we were going to present these elixirs. And then we kind of realized, well, we can't do a range of 7 that correlate to the chakras. It's too many. And also chakras isn't quite mainstream enough. So then we were like, okay, well, we've got 7 drinks. How are we going to make this a smaller range? And then we got into all sorts of questions. And I was like, well, what do we want these drinks to do? Because this one does this, and this one does another, and this one does something else. And yet we're trying to say this is alcohol. So it was like, well, hang on, rewind. What's alcohol for, right? And then we kind of realized all these we took for granted a lot around the realm of alcohol just because of familiarity. Like, everybody knows you drink red wine to relax, and you drink champagne to get giddy, and you drink whiskey to be like cozy and warm, and you drink tequila to go and have a mental night. And we know all of these things, so we don't have to explain it all. Everyone's just absorbed that through sort of 100th monkey effect. And we were like, well, okay, we're inventing alcohol here, but what do we want it to do? Because there's a huge spectrum and playing field of experience that we can bring through, and then just put a label of alcohol free, right? And so that brought a lot of contemplation to unpack that and decide how to go about putting something together that's logical and makes sense and answers the sort of most important need states. And by getting then really clear what I wanted the drink to do, or more precisely feel like, so I'm Cancerian, so like the feeling realm is one I'm comfortable in. So I knew what I wanted to feel after I took it. Actually, that was a sort of more pure creation level, and then trying to figure out what word to use, because you can't have a long paragraph description if you're just putting it on the label of a bottle. Working out what word was going to be closest to that feeling that I was wishing to create was another part of that whole creation process that sort of led me on the big rabbit hole of branding. But ultimately, I knew how I wanted to feel after drinking and why I would drink alcohol. But I also knew the parts of it that I didn't want. So alcohol was great in that I got to feel confident and I got to feel able to express myself. Like it would take the filters off and out of the way, and I'd feel like able to connect to other people and sort of show that, so that it would, I wouldn't say it would heighten empathy, but it would allow a connection that I would be too shy and restrained to have otherwise. And it would give me a boost of energy so that, yeah, I wouldn't feel like going home at 11 o'clock. I'd be off and going and winding up in a club in Shoreditch till 2, 3 in the morning, and then have a big night out and all of the novelty and excitement and opportunity to meet people that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So those were the good things about alcohol. Feeling inebriated and somewhat dissociated, and feeling my intelligence drop and my insight kind of evaporate, and feeling my awareness kind of contract. Like those are the not good parts of alcohol. And recognizing that there's just a quality of communication that you don't get with alcohol. It's like I went to some non-alcohol or non-drug taking festivals, and the atmosphere that I got to experience there sometimes was exquisite. And I use the word exquisite really advisedly, but you'd feel it, and then inspiration and spirit would come through, like the conversations and the insights, and people just going, wow, really, oh my word, I never thought of that. And like that continual sort of revelation of self, like that, the delight of finding just another piece of yourself that you'd forgotten about, like that comes through when you're not drunk. You don't tend to get that when you're drunk. So I could really connect quite precisely to the feelings that I wanted to get from the drink that I was creating. And then that gave me a sort of my course, my compass bearing for making this. And then I could tune into each plant and go, okay, and I'd try and depersonalize and go, okay, do you want to be in this drink? I didn't know what the drink was going to be. I just knew that if I intended it, there would be a drink in some sort of space of reality, and that would then become the attractor point for everything that wanted to go into it. And there was some logic, there was some like going through the herbal dictionary going, oh, that does that, that's nice, or oh, that sounds good, definitely want to feel like that. And it could be quite logical, rational, and then there would be the chance conversations where yarrow was one of them, and it's like, oh, have you tried yarrow? It's amazing. I've just discovered it. It's the best thing. I'm like, wow, I didn't know you were into herbalism, but clearly the universe has given me that information for a reason. And 1 or 2 dreams, I was like, yeah, ginseng's got to be in there. You know, that's good for everything. It's really exactly where we want to go. And then I got a couple of dreams and it was like, no, take it out. Just take it out. I got the dream twice. I was like, all right, I'm listening now. Ignored it the first time. So yeah, inspiration came in a lot of ways. And I even sort of sat down with friends and went through a process where I said, okay, this is my short list, which is quite long. There's about 50 herbs. We can't use 50 herbs and there's a lot of overlap. So which ones do we bring through here? And another friend of mine, one of his spirit guides, past lives, who knows, but it was a Chinese herbalist. So he'd be channeling Jing Zhao, I believe his name was. So yeah.
Big up to him.
Big up to Jing Zhao. Yeah, he definitely helped me with this process as well in deciding a little bit about which plants wanted to go in. Actually, there was a really interesting part of the process that part of me was like, oh God, really? That's okay, then we'll do that. But I was like, I've got all these herbs, and I know some of them have longer cook times and some of them have shorter cook times. Like, you don't want to steep a flower for hours. You're just going to boil off all of those sort of higher fractions and those aromatics. But a root, you can't just chuck it in for 5 minutes. So, and mushrooms similarly, it's like, all right, we're using water here as an extraction method rather than alcohol. And we were taking herbs and roots that were traditionally extracted with alcohol, which we didn't want to use. So it's like, okay, well, we've got to do this with water, which doesn't actually work as well. Water is not as good a solvent as alcohol, right? That's why you have a lot of tinctures out there. I was like, how on earth do I figure out how long I'm going to steep these different ingredients? And one of the innovations that came through was the idea of having effectively 3 different brews, which would then be combined at the end to make the final drink. So, and these brews got their own names. So into Bliss original, like one of the brews is joy and one of the brews is pleasure. And so we're like combining joy and pleasure to get this ultimate experience that actually bliss was what I was going for.
Wow.
That was my favorite sort of name. It's like, well, if I can make something that makes me feel blissful, and hey, like, I think I might have succeeded. That will do nicely.
Amazing. I just want everyone to go out and try this, because the amount of work that you've put in, the amount of connection, this coming through in the dreams, in the culture that we live in, we're not really taught to look at our dreams like that, are we? And what I think, once you start working with plants, you actually do start to communicate with them in meditations and in dreams, and it's amazing how much wisdom can come through that way. So I feel like you are the perfect candidate to be a guest on the New Earth Business podcast, because that's the way I coach people in business. People, my clients come to me, and often they're looking for like strategy and structure, and of course we can do that. But I remind them how to dream. I remind them about taking a break and going into nature and sitting by that tree and asking for inspiration. It's so beautiful how you are literally bottling that and you've turned it into a business. So, couple more questions. We kind of touched on it a bit with you talking about going to sober festivals, so conscious festivals. I am a conscious festival goer as well. I feel the most myself at conscious festivals. I feel the most safe, the most at home. I meet the deepest connections. I've been going to them for the last couple of years. I work at a lot of them, and there's no kind of awkwardness that comes with the when am I going to feel drunk bit, the when am I going to relax bit. You just go in, and if you do feel a little bit of something, you feel a little bit of something, but everyone's kind of talking about it. So as soon as that happens, it's like diffused. So I want to know, how was your how is your brand received at these conscious festivals? Like, give me some testimonials. And what are people, because obviously a lot of people that go to conscious festivals drink outside of that, or they do other things outside of that. So how are people experiencing your product?
Yeah, I wish I could remember the testimonials that I've got. I should just at least commit 3 or 4 to memory, because I get blown away. But for some reason, like, the exact wording.
What's the vibe? Just tell me the vibe. You don't need to do wording. We're not here to organize sentences properly.
Yeah, like what you said about it at the start of this conversation just comes back over the counter time and again. Like the people that come up to me, this is amazing. I can't believe how different I feel. I was feeling a little bit wonky, didn't quite settle, hadn't quite arrived, and I had one of your drinks, or I tried this one, or I had a couple of your drinks, and I went out and I just had the best night because I don't know, I felt really, and this is where words fail me, like and this is where it's always such a personal and individual experience, whether it's somebody no longer feeling weird because they're not drinking, or just feeling themselves, or just going off and having an incredibly insightful conversation. It's an attunement. Like every time, it's an attunement. It's its very own little medicinal tweak.
Medicinal moment.
Medicinal moment, yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when
love
my friend came around recently and she brought a bottle of wine and I was like, oh, I'm doing dry January. So no thanks, but I'll make you, have a drink, and I'll make you a cocktail. And I made her a picante because I was making them all through Christmas and I got them really nice. But then I got out my Bliss and I made it with the coconut milk, and she had her cocktail. I had my Bliss with the coconut milk with lots of ice in, and we both sipped it together. And it was that moment of, I didn't need to be on the same alcohol as my friend to have that connection moment, but it was a connection through the making something together. Mine was Bliss and hers had mezcal in, which is totally fine. But yeah, that really brought us a nice connection. And then in the evening, when she was a little bit juiced up from the mezcal, I was from my Bliss, and we were kind of equal in that energy.
Yeah it's very much intended to bridge that gap, like between the drunk and the not drunk. And I was fed up of going out and just not fitting in. Like, well, I've spent a lifetime already feeling like an alien on this planet. Now I don't fit in because I'm not drunk. This wasn't okay. I don't have a hangover, but I'm not able to enjoy my nights out. And because I was feeling socially connected and good in myself, I didn't feel on the outside anymore of what was going on. Like, I was having a great time, they were having a great time. It's fine. We could speak the same language and find the same bonhomie together.
Yeah. So what advice would you have for people that are sober curious? This is like a buzzword at the moment. I'm probably going to put it in the title for this podcast because it might get searched.
Yeah, well, you can definitely get high with herbs in a really enjoyable and alcohol-alike way. So you're not going to be bereft of having something that helps in social scenarios. Like the social anxiety is just such a huge reason why people drink, and also the need to fit in. And there is a solution for both of those. There really is. I don't believe in giving up. I don't believe in not doing anything. I believe in doing something else. So whether that's substituting a lollipop for cigarettes a la Kojak, or chocolate for adrenaline sports, or taking a herbal plant elixir instead of alcohol. You're doing you. And and the same with giving up. Like, you can't just not be an alcoholic, you have to be something else. And so for me, it was about, okay, I'm going to get into biohacking and becoming that person that I know I can be and would love to be, but didn't think I was worthy to be. And I'll just stay focused on that until it happens, because what else am I going to do? Life is long, and got to do something with it. So
I love that.
And also being sober curious opens up just a whole realm of really novel and fun and exciting experiences. Like, so I spent a lot of years being drunk, but my true joy when I go out is to hit the dance floor. And something happens for me when I do that. Like, I'm not dancing salsa, I'm not dancing anybody else's dance, I'm dancing my own dance, and that is a language in its own right. It's a medicine in its own right, and I get high as a kite from doing that. And I couldn't do that when I'm drinking, not at all. I totally feel my ability to move in the way that feels good decrease and decrease. You know, even half a glass of like half a pint of beer will stop me from getting to that ecstatic, euphoric state that I get on an ecstatic dance floor. And it's easily the equal of any of the best alcohol moments. It really is. And I can go out on a Sunday morning, and I regularly do go out on a Sunday morning and get high as a kite, and you try doing that on alcohol, and you're not on a good trajectory.
So dancing plus Spirit of Bliss is a really good combination. Like one of those drinks, an ecstatic dance session, and you are as high as you've ever been, but grounded.
Absolutely. The drinks are certainly grounding. I have to say that when I'm in my full flow on a dance floor, then I think I'm connecting a little bit too much up there. It takes me quite a while to ground back down afterwards. Like
I would love to see some of those moves. I'll catch you on a dance floor at a festival.
We will cross paths on the dance floor for
sure. Okay, so we're gonna kind of wrap up now. My last question that I ask all of my guests are, what does New Earth business mean to you?
We're creating an earth that we cannot envisage yet. We're creating something that we do not know what it is. Now, if that isn't counterintuitive to normal business, I don't know what is. You know, I do have a day job doing IT, and that's the total opposite. You get a very clear objective, where I started with a feeling, I started with an intention, I started with something very intangible. I could not describe it really. I just knew that there was a destination out there, and I would let life take me to that destination. And so what we're creating is so hard to describe. Like, if it's truly New Earth, it doesn't even exist yet. Like, it's the early days of the invention of the World Wide Web, where nobody could figure out what even that was or what it would mean for society. And there's a World Wide Web of consciousness that is yet to come into place, and that will be in bringing through a fractal society, and a society that is post a lot of the structures that we have in place at the moment. And it's going to come through so fast. I mean, maybe it's a little bit slow if you've got a 3 and 5 year plan, and you need to,
or a 3 or a 5-year-old child stopping you from doing your business.
Well, yeah, I think as a parent, that's probably good preparation. We have these weird relationships with time. So where do you want to be next year? Yeah, I want a 7-figure business in 3 years, and it's got to do X, Y, Z. And it's all kind of hooked up in the, well, I want that endorsement of success, and I want to prove myself, and I want to get a Ferrari, and all of that stuff that we've all been taught to aspire to. Well, if you have a child, the time scale is very different. You know, what do you want there? Well, actually, you start thinking more appropriately. It's like, I want to have a relationship with my daughter as is when she's 25, where there's such a degree of trust and love and appreciation, because we've given each other so much for that period of time. You know, that's a feeling, that's like a quality of connection and communication that I don't know how that comes about. Like, I have no idea what comes about from year dot to year 25. Like, all the experiences that we're going to have in between that will be formative, that will create that degree of connection and communication and trust. And so, like, we kind of know that there's a new world out there. It's like setting off for the Americas, and
going by the constellations.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go into your creation myths, but if you kind of say, well, Christopher Columbus had some information. He knew it was out there, but he had to cover a lot of featureless ocean before he was going to arrive at it. And it's like, I've got to a point now where I just want to get out of the way as much as possible. And that's a spiritual, it's such a truism and such a sort of hackneyed, oft repeated phrase, and it's not easy to do, but it's about saying, well, today let something magical and miraculous and beautiful happen. Because if it's magical and miraculous and beautiful, I can't imagine it right now, and I can't do it, so it's got to come from somewhere else. And actually, you can get specific as well. I do creation rituals. This is a good one if you're talking about entrepreneurialism and business. One that's been working for me really well recently is I received some really good financial news today, which I love that one. I mean, it's brought about some really great chunks of money falling in, whether they're small or decent sized chunks of money. I'm like, well, that really helps. That really solves a problem. That really allows me to do something. But if it's news, I didn't know about it, right? It's new by definition. So I couldn't have predicted it. So I can't then stress about whether it's going to happen or not. I can't try and then make it happen. It's either going to happen or it's not. But it works remarkably frequently. And then when I don't do it, I'm like, why didn't I do that yesterday? Well, I could have had some good financial news.
What's the process? Talk me through the process of the creation.
Well, my personal process, and this, I've always struggled with visualization, right? And I still struggle with visualization. I just don't seem to be a very visual person, and all the books say you have to visualize stuff. But what I don't struggle with is words and auditory creation seems to work really well for me. So I will go out and I'll walk in the forest just out there, and I'll generally spend an hour walking, an hour and a half if I get my priorities straight and give it the time it deserves and actually remember that it pays back a lot more. And that just gets me into the right frequency, and then I create my day. And what I generally create is I create that today is flowing. I'm in the flow. Like the day has a beautiful flow. There's an exquisite quality of flow that permeates the day, and then I play with this idea of flow as much as I can to then bring about this flow state. And then I don't have to do nearly so much planning. It's like things just kind of roll on, and then something good happens, and then something else good happens, and good stuff keeps happening. And at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, what a great day. And I create that that I end the day really satisfied and content. So my logical mind can tick off a few of my business goals and go, yeah, okay, I did that and I did that. And yes, that's getting me where I want to go. And it keeps that kind of logical brain happy. But ultimately, it's that feeling of contentment that you get from the satisfaction of a job well done. So I really like the word content and playing with that and making sure that I end my day content. And then, yeah, I get good financial news today. Oh, great. Well, if good financial news is coming in, I don't have to stress about this money thing that is constantly like a monkey on all of our backs, and increasingly so as it's used to decrease our frequency and make us take stupid decisions that are not healthy for us, and that do not bring about new earth, right? So it's a good way of responding to the cost of living crisis or whatever other crisis the government wants to put us into on a daily basis. And it just seems to keep working.
Right. So replacing this old paradigm, how to run a business, with sacred flow, with going out into nature, tuning in with yourself, bringing through those like personal affirmations and setting up your day. And what I'm hearing throughout everything that you've been saying just now is the word trust. It like literally was ringing in my ears. So it's like trust. You have I would maybe not perfected, because I think we're all work in progress, but you are somebody that strikes me as you trust in the flow of life.
Yeah, certainly not perfected, but I know the perfection of that approach, and I'm getting better at remembering more quickly to do that as a practice, until one day it will become second nature.
Train those neuro pathways.
And I like to practice it with the small things rather than have to wait for some big, like, life-changing event that I then have to do a shed load of work in very painful circumstances for 3 months. I'd rather just practice it on a daily basis, so I don't need those big course corrections. The little tweaks in direction,
the little compass jiggles. I mean, that is where I'm at as well. I've had 3 near-death experiences, and I am having no more of those. Thank you very much.
I think I'm around about the same. So
and but I'm better prepared for the big stuff because of what I've been through before. And like you said, just keep doing those little tweaks, those little course corrections, and you'll stay on your path. So how can people connect with you? How can people buy bottles of your beautiful drinks? Let us know.
Yes. We make it as easy as possible to buy bottles of beautiful plant spirit elixirs. I like your description from the start of the interview there. The website is thespiritofbliss.com. At the moment it says PayPal as a payment option, but that does allow you to put a card in as well. So yeah, please check us out on Instagram as well. I put some interesting posts up there every now and then, and I get around to doing the entrepreneurial marketing bit. So that's also the Spirit of Bliss is the Instagram name. So we'd love to meet up with you and connect with you there. And then festivals as well. I think we'll definitely be at All About Love, probably Love Jam, that's a small one, another one Shindig. Hoping to get along to Shambhala, but that's yet to be organised whatsoever, actually. Need a bit of divine flow to get to that one. Maybe 1 or 2 others. So yeah, it'd be great to serve you a drink at a festival, or even an
Amazing.
ecstatic dance as well. It's nice to bring them along to ecstatic dances as well. It's like a sort of final word on it. For me, it's like being a DJ, but instead of playing with music and getting everybody on the same frequency with music, if I can get half a room drinking bliss, they're all on very much on the same frequency. And then I can kind of watch that frequency play itself out in the room. It's just like dropping a tune. It's lovely. So
Wow, I'm just visualizing all these like plant spirit molecules bobbing about.
yeah, that's it. They all come out to play with us.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, Dickon, this has been enlightening and really informative conversation, perfect for this time of the year when lots of people are trying dry. So if you like the sound of this, head to the website. I'm going to put all of the links in the show notes so you can go and get your bottles of bliss and start your plant spirit elixir journey. Thank you so much.
Oh, total joy and a total pleasure. Yeah, really enjoyed the conversation, Emma, and look forward to our paths crossing.
Yeah, look forward to dancing and checking out some of those moves.
Fantastic, you're on.